the event we had in October where Peter Fields came over to these shores and in person kind of talked about the latest trends with regard to the long and the short of it. And I think many of you were probably at that conference, and if you remember what Peter said, his seminal work with Les Bennett is the long and the short of it. And he said the most important word in that title is and, the long and the short of it. That what brands need to do to drive market share and drive growth and drive the effectiveness of advertising is to do both short term and long term. Short term being bottom of the funnel, nudging people to spend. So, for example, in a few weeks it's Valentine's Day, so you could have a message saying, buy some chocolates now. That's short term. That will get people to purchase in the short term. But that type of messaging is not very memorable in the long term. People will forget it. What you need to do as well, you need to balance that with long-term communications that in some cases can stay in people's memories for years and years and years. And that's about priming emotion, an emotional response, and making consumers like you, want you, and desire a brand and create mental availability over the long term. And brands need to do a bit of both. And that's what we're really talking about today is what is the role emotion plays in audio advertising effectiveness? And also, what's best practice in ensuring that your creative does deliver an emotional response? I think it's really, really important that we look at this in terms of audio, because as I'm sure you're all aware, when it comes to traditional TV, audiences are declining. There's huge inflationary pressures. When it comes to audio, audiences are increasing. And it's hugely ineffective and efficient to reach huge, wide audience in audio to really support that message. So what today is about is really understanding how the emotions defining role in audio advertising effectiveness. And I'm delighted to say that System One, I think as a company, most of you know, they work in the area of advertising effectiveness, and they partner with Radio Centre in the UK, and they team together to create a brilliant piece of research that looks at this area. So I'm delighted to introduce Donna Burns, who's head of insight of Radio Centre in the UK, and Andrew Tyndall, who's global partnership director of System One. And they're going to go through the presentation now. Just before they start, just to say, one, the presentation is recorded, so some of your colleagues may not have been able to attend but did register. They will get the recording. You will also, people who are on the webinar now will also get the recording later, so you'll be able to review it at a later stage in your own time. And secondly, if you do want to ask a question, if you look at the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, just type in your question, and I will ask that question to Donna or to Andrew at the end of the presentation. So I'm delighted to hand over to Donna now. Thank you, Donna.
Wonderful, thank you. So hello, we are happy to be here to share with you this groundbreaking, unique, and most importantly, actionable piece of research into the role of emotion in audio advertising effectiveness that we launched a few months ago. And this project brought together the expertise of System One, the creative effectiveness platform, who have a long history of emotions-based creativity testing, and us here at Radio Centre UK. Now, we are really proud of this project. It launched at our conference in London, and since then it's been picked up and featured within Walk, Media Leader, Marketing Beat, Campaign, to name a few, as well as being shared widely across LinkedIn, and it's starting to work its way around creative agencies and clients and feature on the lineup at some conferences already too, which we're quite excited about. Now, this project contains world-first insights based on a hugely robust sample of 50,000 radio listeners, analysing campaigns across multiple categories that have run over the last 10 years in the UK. And it builds upon the work of Orlando Wood and the IPA on targeting the left and right brain within advertising, more of which Andrew will talk you through shortly. And this project was the first time ever that audio creative features have been coded to see whether they appeal to the left or the right brain. And although, as Kieran said, we are Radio Centre UK, so we do operate separately from Radio Centre Ireland, and the ads in this study are from the UK, all of the learnings can, of course, be utilised within your markets. And so we were more than happy to share these with you when Kieran asked. So, in a nutshell, this project sets out to explain how we can make the most effective audio ads. But why is that so important? Well, actually, because radio, as we know, is a powerful broad reach medium in great growth. And unlike the UK, you can advertise across all stations here in Ireland. The latest JNLR reveals that 92% of Irish adults and 88% of the sometimes hard to reach 15 to 34s listen to radio every week, with the average adult listening for over 4 hours a day. And in comparison to other things that they may be listening to too, live radio takes the lion's share, 74% of total audio listening time spent listening to radio versus 12% for music streaming, the next biggest. Now, radio listening in Ireland accounts for around 14% of total ad spend, again, much bigger than in the UK. However, it can be sometimes hampered by creative execution, often seen as a tactical-only medium with a lot of ads focusing on very functional messages. So we feel there's a potential for so much more. So not only does radio in Ireland reach a huge proportion of the population, it accompanies listeners throughout their day, providing lots of context for brands to target relevant moments. And with the rise of smart speakers and digital listening, this continues to grow, with 9 in 10 listening occasions to radio being alongside other tasks. For example, listen to radio as you're driving to work, when you're in the office, perhaps studying, perhaps cooking, looking after kids at home. Radio is accompanying people all throughout their day. So effective audio is really key to be capitalising on cutting through on radio, a passive medium. Now, the power of audio, here we go. The power of audio for capturing attention was further illustrated within a recent study by Thinkbox, the trade body for TV, which focused on the impact of distractions on viewing TV ads. Now, filmed in the living room of 64 households as they watched TV, the study paid particular attention to what happened during the 17,000 ad exposures this sample saw. Now, the research revealed that over 70% of the ads played whilst viewers were somehow distracted, either visually distracted, perhaps looking at their phones or elsewhere, talking or otherwise occupied, not really focused on the screen. Now, the second half of the study involved a lab test controlling the different types of distractions to fairly compare them. It found that actually auditory memory was less impacted by distractions than visual memory. People were significantly more likely to remember what they had heard than what they had saw. And the video ethnography from those households had shown viewers on their phones or otherwise distracted from the main TV screen still singing along with the TV ad. Now, audio is filling in for lack of visuals when distracted. It's helping attract visual attention to TV and provided information that people could fill in the gaps of what was happening when they couldn't see the TV screen. People used these auditory cues to follow a narrative, or when people heard a sound they recognised, they knew what it looked like. For example, when they heard the music To Go Compare, it brought up a picture of the brand. Now, this doesn't come as much of a surprise to us in the radio industry, as it's been long known that sound can be used to create theatre of the mind. So, with the number of radio listeners in Ireland growing steadily and the power of audio to cut through clearly shown, the Listen Up research presents a huge opportunity for brands to harness the power of sound and truly get heard in an increasingly crowded advertising landscape. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Andrew to tell you some more.
Amazing. Thank you, Donna. Well, what makes effective advertising? When Orlando Wood, System One's Chief Innovation Officer, wrote Lemon and Lookout with the IPA, he started a bit of a movement. He used System One's video ad testing tool to show that emotions predict both the long and the short-term effects of video advertising. He also introduced the concept of the left and the right brain to advertisers around the world. He shared the brain lateralization work of British psychologist Ian McGilchrist. Our left hemisphere of the brain is more sensitive to dopamine, our reward for doing a task. It holds a very narrow focus on the world and is very goal-orientated. Orlando found it's more associated with TV ads for short-term sales effects, as opposed to our right hemisphere, which is more sensitive to noradrenaline. Our reward for being vigilant, it holds a very broad attention on the world, and it's interested in people, emotion, and context. The right brain is more associated with TV ads that generate stronger memories and longer lasting brand effects. we have brought this thinking for the very first time into audio advertising. We've also created Test Your Ad Audio, a research tool that allows advertisers to predict and improve the performance of audio ads by measuring real human emotion and brand recognition second by second, all in under 24 hours without the need to put anything on air. We turn this data into our 3 key predictive metrics that you'll see throughout the Listen Up research. Star rating predicts long-term effectiveness of audio ads, the lasting effects from leaving listeners feeling positive towards your brand. Spike rating predicts the short-term effects from how rapid the ad brands in the ad and how intensely it makes listeners feel anything. Not just leaving them feeling positive, but leaving them feel anything, getting them engaged emotively. And finally, fluency is the percentage of correct brand linkage of the audio ad after listening to it once. For this study, we dug deeper and wanted to explore the specific in-market effects of radio ads to understand what makes effective audio advertising. This is where Radio Centre stepped in.
So here at Radio Centre UK, we are the proud owners of the biggest radio campaign effectiveness database in the world, Radio Gauge. Now, having launched in 2008, we have measured over 1,000 different radio campaigns across multiple categories and brands. How it works, we compare a sample of commercial radio listeners to non-listeners so we can isolate the radio effect and provide post-campaign analysis covering key brand metrics, including ad awareness, consumer actions, ad recall, and brand trust, alongside measuring creative engagement amongst listeners. And it was this in-market effectiveness data that System 1 was really interested in. So we shared with System 1 Radio Gauge effectiveness data from 55 different campaigns that had run over the last 10 years. Now, these had a combined sample of over 50,000 commercial radio listeners and non-listeners. Now, by providing a broad range of high, average and weaker scoring radio ads, System 1 were able to compare the in-market brand effects of advertising from Radio Gauge with different emotional responses from their own measures to understand how emotions and brand recognition generally change the effectiveness of campaigns. Whilst the creativity scores were analysed for left and right brain features, now this helped to unlock world-first insights into audio creative effectiveness. So in total, we analysed the data for 131 radio ads across 13 categories, including travel, retail, FMCG, autos and finance. Now, this representative sample ensures that the findings are robust and actionable across brands and applicable across audio advertising formats. I'll hand back over to Andrew to explain some more of the groundwork of our findings.
Dramatic intimacy. Beethoven used the fermata, this sheet music symbol, in his Fifth Symphony to create pauses. Silence piques our interest, heightens our vigilance. It draws and importantly sustains a room's attention for hours. We also heard the use of sotto voce, which is Italian for under the voice. This modulation of volume at key moments conveys emotion. It piques our interest, causing us to lean in and heighten our other senses. It was also used by Mozart in the 18th century. This is actually his writing from one of the last pieces of music he wrote on the year he died, Ave Verum Corpus. Beethoven and Mozart were perhaps the world's best storytellers without needing word or image. And that's why dramatic intimacy is one of our newly defined right brain audio creative features, as it attracts broad attention and sustains it and entertains for commercial gain. Like in video advertising, we also see the use of character, incident, and place, working particularly well as they do not assume interest from the listener, but they earn it. Dialogue, especially with distinctive accents, can help establish characters' roles and create relationships between them without the need of any visuals. Sounds of the living, contextual noise, especially wordplay and humor, can introduce further depth and drama. Finally, our right hemisphere is largely responsible for our sense of lived time, space, depth, and flow, meaning music with a discernible melody, a tune you can hum, is crucially important for sustaining attention. So these 10 newly defined right brain creative features for audio advertising are perfect for building those lasting memories and creating those longer lasting brand effects, as opposed to the newly defined 10 left brain features. They're more suited for those already in the buying mode, like being spoken directly to with little audio depth or context, being sold to using claims, comparisons, data, or over-reliance of specific features and attributes. These features will attract the focused attention of those already interested in buying, creating sales demand now, but they will not contribute to lasting effects. They will not create future demand. The power of this new advertising lens is clear with one of our key findings. Audio ads with more right brain features cause more longer lasting brand effects. We analyzed each ad for right brain skew. That's the number of right brain features less the number of left brain features. Comparing this to our star rating to understand the likelihood of these ads causing long lasting brand effects via creating strong positive emotions, there's a strong, significant positive relationship between them. Advertisers aiming for more longer lasting effects should use more right brain features in audio advertising and try to use less left brain features. Now, we know attention is a hot topic at the moment. However, eye tracking studies don't work on audio. And as Donna has already shared, people paying attention to TV ads, even when they aren't looking at them, with their ears. So I'd like to look a step beyond attention at features in advertising that really gain attention and build memory structures and emotion. To understand this, we looked at the change in ad recall weighted for media spend per 100 GRP when a creative feature was present or not in the ad. To understand its ability to cause positive emotional reaction, crucial for those long-term effectiveness, we also looked at the change in star rating when a feature was present or not. Now, I believe this is the most powerful finding in the entire study. There's a clear pattern. Right brain features cause more advertising recall and more positive emotions. They earn more broad attention. They build more positive memory structures, key for advertising, which creates lasting brand effects, as opposed to left brain features, which show the opposite pattern. They attract less broad attention, they cause less positive emotions, and are less associated with memory, making them more suited for short-term message-driven ads. To show how useful this lens of advertising is, we tested a Haribo TV ad. It's one of the most effective ads in our TV database, and we know this at System 1 as we test every TV ad that airs in the UK and the US with our Test Your Ad for TV. We also tested the radio version of the ad, which is a like-for-like copy of the TV ad, just without the video. It scores a 3.6 stars. This is still one of the most effective radio ads we've tested, but it's lost some of its magic. Here's the emotion traces to understand why.
Haribo Star Mix? Yes. Maybe the bear could steal the ring, which is the crown jewel. Could run away with it. Maybe the police could find him. Yeah. We are the police.
So we see an erosion of right brain creative features, a loss of character, a loss of place, a loss of humor. The joke doesn't really land. We don't really know who these policemen are or where they are. Their creative agency, Quiet Storm, noticed this and created an ad specific for radio Let's have a quick listen.
Coming squad car 4, do you copy?
Ooh, Haribo Star Mix. I love strawberry hearts. This ring is really squidgy. Imagine if we could use the rings for handcuffs to catch the baddies. Maybe when we've got them, we give them a squishy bear to give them a cuddle. Yeah.
Squad car 4, have you been eating Haribo again?
Maybe.
They've brought back in more right brain creative features. Characterization, sounds of the living, unexpected contextual noise, all add more depth. The sirens so that we know where they are and who they are. The joke works better, the story works better. And as such, this is actually the highest scoring audio ad we've ever tested at System 1. It follows a key creative effectiveness principle. Keep consistent with the media mix, but ensure you are creating for each channel's best practice. The same can be said for out of home and digital. So why are positive emotions so important for audio advertising, I hear you ask? Well, our first finding, we explored the behavior change of the 50,000 people involved in Radio Centre's effectiveness database. With our star rating metric, we looked at the behavior change caused by radio campaigns with below average star ratings, those that cause weak, neutral, or even negative emotions, but not positive ones. They cause very little change in any type of behavior, which includes, from the Radio Centre data, buying, talking about, using, or searching for a brand. However, super interestingly, ads with a higher than average star rating, those that leave people feeling positive, cause very large behavior changes. Advertisers should aim to elicit positive emotional reaction to change behavior towards their brand with audio advertising. For our second finding, we wanted to dive deeper into that behavior change to understand what could make brands famous, what gets people sharing your brand. We did the same analysis looking at word of mouth. Campaigns with higher than average star rating get brands more talked about, interestingly. Similarly, campaigns with higher star ratings get brands more talked about online as well. This is super important. This will make brands feel famous, playing into social proof. So we wanted to see what effect this had on how many times people thought they'd heard the ad. We looked at the amount of times people felt they had heard an ad a few times or a lot, versus not hearing it a lot, very many times at all. By weighting this for media, we uncovered perceived heavy ad exposure. It turns out that radio ads with higher star ratings, those that cause more positive emotions, less negative ones or less neutral ones, felt like they'd been heard more. They made your media work 5% harder. This makes sense. These campaigns will have more right brain features, causing more memory structures to form. They'll get the brand to be shared more as well. These campaigns make your brand more famous. To make your media spend work harder, use audio ads that leave people feeling more positive. Our third finding, we know that a broad, highly public, omnipresent media channel like radio is highly trusted. In fact, previous research from Radio Centre has shown that consumers trust radio most to get their news from. So it's no surprise that this matches up with Peter Field's research with the IPA, showing campaigns that use radio build more very large trust effects. But in a world where more ad spend is going digital, a channel that struggles to build any brand trust, what can brands do to their radio ads to take full advantage of the brand building power of radio? So we explored this by looking at the media-weighted trust increase caused by each radio campaign. Ads with a below average fluency rating, where not many listeners link the ad back to the brand correctly, still cause modest trust gains. However, well-branded radio ads that take full advantage of the power of radio cause double the brand trust effects. This is so important for brands needing to build trust, especially professional service brands, health, finance, education brands. advertisers should use radio ads with lots of distinctive and famous audio brands assets used early and often to build fluency and to win over consumer confidence. And our penultimate and fourth finding is actually my favorite. So we wanted to understand what brands could do to shift the dial in advertising best with radio campaigns. What campaigns got made to make your brand feel like it had a larger share of voice. So we looked at the change in advertising awareness, media weighted per 100 GRPs, compared to our spike rating. Now, System 1's spike rating predicts short-term effects by predicting how hard ads work for a brand in the short term. It blends the speed at which people recognize a brand in the ad, so how brand-centric that ad is, and how intensely it makes people feel any emotion, so how emotionally engaged the listener is. It's cognitive attention, if you would. Super interestingly, there's a strong, positive, significant relationship between the two. If you brand early and make people feel something, you build more advertising awareness. The ad works harder for you at the same media spend, which will lead to greater short-term effects. This is interesting as Adam Morgan and Peter Field, working at the agency Eat Big Fish, are exploring a concept called the cost of dull, which looks at the extra media cash brands have to spend to make boring ads work as hard as interesting ones. We can see this in this data. What's even more interesting is this outlier. How could every 100 GRPs of this radio ad move advertising awareness backwards? Well, salience is constantly being eroded by time and the competition advertising. If you aren't building awareness more than that erosion, you are moving backwards. You must swim faster than the current. This ad left branding right to the end, hoping people still cared, and was so boring it couldn't build ad awareness quicker than it was being eroded. The cash would have been better spent on a more effective radio ad or somewhere else in the media mix. That was just one extreme example, but if we look at the other side, one campaign managed to brand so early and use a distinctive creative strategy which built emotion, was interesting and not boring. For every 100 GRPs, they nearly built 8% ad awareness. Wow. So if you want your ad to work harder and land those short-term effects, make sure that you're branding early and using a creative that actually starts to emote with the listeners. So our final finding. So System 1 tests a lot of TV and radio ads. And interestingly, they have the same average star rating in our database, predicting similar long-term effects via emotion. This shouldn't be a surprise, as Donna mentioned before, with TV ads mainly being listened to and not seen. So I'm now going to hand over to Donna, who will take you through our creative best practice to make the world's most effective audio ads.
Wonderful, thank you. So yes, how can you harness all of these great findings that Andrew's just taken you through so you can outperform those averages, close the gap and make the most effective audio ads for your campaigns? Well, first of all, as Andrew shared, there we go. First of all, as Andrew shared in detail, advertising aiming for more longer lasting effects should incorporate more right brain features. And there are many to choose from, thinking about characters, story unfolding, sounds of the living, dialogues. So here is a great example from Bisto.
The Great British Roast. When mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
So it really encompasses some of the things that Andrew's been talking about. It's very right brain, very rich, sotto voce, as you can hear the dramatic pause in there. You can hear the sounds of the living in the background. So this ad, with our RadioGator data, we know that 22% thought they'd heard this ad a lot, despite it having one of the smallest media spends. The power of all of these right brain creative features. And it scored 3 stars with System 1's testing. So next, what else can you do? Incorporate these right brain features, but you can also make sure that you create your ads with the listener in mind. Now, our radio gated data revealed a relationship between positive emotions and an ad being really clear who it's for. Now, don't be shy, make your brand prominent and relatable if possible. Use a creative strategy that solves a consumer goal or problem. Include customer insights whilst trying to limit excessive detail like terms and conditions where possible. Now, of course, we know that when it comes to tackling excessive T's and C's in radio ads, some of these are untouchable due to regulations. However, Radio Centre UK and our clearance team in particular have done a lot of work with the FCA on how to reduce the need for T's and C's in the script. For anybody interested, there's a lot of guidance published on our own website, and for any brands that this could be particularly helpful for. So next up, you want to don't zag, zig, zig, zig. Now, what do I mean by that? So ads that stood out from the category and other radio ads get more attention and result in listeners feeling greater emotional intensity. However, it's important for audio ads to be consistently distinctive. For example, they want to sound different from other brands, but they need to consistently sound like themselves. Now, fluent device is a term I think Andrew's mentioned a couple of times, and it's a term that's rising in popularity. But what do we mean by a fluent device? Now, this is all about your branding assets, your brand sound, your sonic, voice, characters, jingle, which used to be a dirty word within radio, but it's now having a resurgence. All the things that make your brand sound like your brand. Keep them consistent. Now, speaking of consistency, ensuring your audio ads are consistent with ads across the marketing mix. So Andrew showed a great example of the Haribo ad there. Really boosts long-term effectiveness by extending campaigns and building stronger memory structures. Now, Radio Centre UK have done some additional work within our brand multiplier study, looking at radio's ability to work well with TV to grow category entry points for the brand when the overall creative strategy across the TV and radio is kept consistent. So next up, music. Embrace the power of music. It really is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, music brings audio ads to life by attracting attention and creating emotion. Using music generally caused a huge jump in long-term effectiveness within the System 1 testing. However, certain types of music were better than others. So melodic music was more powerful than repetitive rhythmic soundtracks. Think about music that listeners can easily hum to really create those easy to recall earworms. Now, again, this builds on some previous research from Radio Centre on the benefits of the consistent use of music within campaigns. This was a study called Strike a Chord that can be found on our website for anybody interested in reading some more. And finally, last but by no means least, brand early and brand often to benefit from the trust effects, as Andrew showed earlier. Now, without the advantage of visual cues, introducing the brand's distinctive audio assets earlier in the ad, ideally within the first few seconds, and repeating throughout can really help listeners to process the ad more effortlessly. Think about all the other things that listeners could be doing whilst listening to radio. Now, this doesn't just mean repeating the brand name again and again. Nobody wants to hear ads like that, but instead utilise the brand's full audio assets. So be that strapline, character, voices, or music. All of these can help enhance both short-term and long-term ad effects and really be a great shortcut to knowing who the ad message is for when people might be potentially distracted by doing other things whilst listening to radio. Now, here's a great example from Tesco of branding early and branding often.
At Tesco, every little helps goes way beyond helping with your shopping. A little help is
donating £66 million worth of food
to those who welcome a hot meal,
or families who just need a hand.
And a little help is working with suppliers to remove 1 billion pieces of plastic so we can have less in our stores.
Which means less in our oceans.
A little help makes a big difference.
Tesco. Every little helps.
So not only does it mention the brand name, it also has the other Fluent devices. It has the same voice also using the TV, and the strapline "Every Little Helps." So it links it to Tesco, even if you've missed hearing the initial Tesco name at the start of the ad. Now, this, when System 1 tested this ad, it resulted in a 97% fluency rating and a 12% increase in brand trust. So there you have it, all of the findings and how to utilise them for your campaigns. Now, this QR code here on the screen links through to the full Listen Up publication, should you want more information, or to read or listen to some more great case studies from this project. Now, I'm going to hand back to Kieran now to explain a unique opportunity for Irish brands to test their own campaigns using the System 1 methodology. Over to you, Kieran.
Many thanks, Donna, and many thanks, Andrew. That was a fascinating presentation. There's so many insights within that 40-minute presentation and so many learnings, I think, for all brand owners and agencies within Ireland, to how you can really leverage the power of audio, the power of sound, deliver really, really impressive results for your brands. And it's brilliant to see so many learnings and insights backed up by incredible amount of really powerful empirical data. So, and actually one thing that stood out for me was showing that Harbo example of the TV ad, and that specific TV ad not translating directly to an audio format, but being able to tweak and change and then use that, create a platform in a different way, hugely powerfully within audio. And obviously, as everybody knows, in terms of the investment in audio, in terms of production, is very minimal. So the cost of entry in terms of making changes and taking the learnings from that presentation and bring them into your creative process for audio, I think is hugely powerful and a huge opportunity for all Irish brands. And to add to that opportunity, as you've seen the test, your ad audio saw in working during the presentation there very powerfully, and that opportunity is now coming to Ireland. Radio Centre Ireland, along with System 1, have been working on this in the background for a number of weeks. And what we're able to, from today on, bring to any advertiser or agency in Ireland is the opportunity to test your audio ad in Ireland. There is 150 national representative respondent. So the tracing and the visuals you saw in the presentation will be redone for your brand. But along with that, you will get a specific debrief from a researcher who will explain the concepts, will explain the insights, and deliver actionable insights for you and your brand to take forward. And the price is a discounted price. So at the moment, the price is €2,000 for that test, which is discounted from the normal price that System 1 will charge. And what I'm suggesting is I will send you a follow-up email, which will have also the recording of this webinar, and I'll have my email details. And if you want to talk to me directly, have a conversation about that, you can do so. But we will be launching this a little bit more formally later. There'll be a section on the website. You'll be able to interact and have the opportunity to test your audio ad. So again, many thanks to Donna and Andrew. It was a fantastic presentation. There's quite a few questions, so I'm going to go to the question button now, and I'm just going to ask those questions on behalf of some of the attendees. The first question is, appreciate that the higher star ads result in greater sense of having heard more, but could you, or have you seen this work in a negative effect where it could result in a higher sense of wear out?
What a great question. So with wear out, System 1, I've done a lot of research, mainly based in TV, admittedly, showing that the only people that get bored of advertising is marketers. And we see no emotional wear out from advertising. Sure, if you're going to hit someone with 20, a frequency of 20 in a day, sure, it might start getting less positive and more negative. But we've really not seen any evidence of wear out. And when you look at the absolute figures from that research around heard this ad a lot, I think it's like 16% say they've heard it a lot. So it's not like the whole audience is suddenly thinking that they can't get away from this ad. So definitely it's more leaning into that, making your brand famous and building advertising awareness, which is a super, super good thing.
And to just go back to the point you made earlier when you showed that chart, it was an amazing chart of the one brand that was having a negative impact because the credit was very poor. So I presume it goes back to, if you take all the learnings from the presentation and apply them, probably wear out isn't going to be a big factor. But if
completely.
in the first place is a different impact.
Completely. I mean, people keep asking me what campaign that was, because, you know, I've obviously had to list all these campaigns. I can't remember, which kind of proves the point of how boring it was.
Okay. Next question. How exactly is emotion being measured? Are you using brain data?
Okay, we're not taking it easy. We're jumping in straight with the kind of the method. So it's not AI to start off with. It's humans that are self-reporting online during a survey. We're not strapping people up to electrodes, and we're not doing face tracing, because we've actually shown that that's actually not very predictive of in-market effects. And we'd actually prefer to lean on the side of actually talking to quite a lot of consumers to gather the data in a very rapid way of working, so that we can inform you how your ad's done the next day. So it's consumers clicking online and telling us, almost playing like a gamified version to get to how they're feeling, with lots of pictures and faces and stuff, basically, which allows us to get to quite a large sample of emotional data all in 24 hours. If people want to drop me an email, or are really worried about how to measure emotion, I've got a lot of really nerdy research that kind of blows a lot of it out of the water that I can share with you. But I won't bore everyone with that now.
And to that point, when I send the recording, I'll also, Andrew, if that's okay, share your email if anybody wants.
Sure.
Next question, and I know, Donna, you have done research on this in the UK. It's around T's and C's. And again, a question, you mentioned T's and C's. Is there a point at which terms and conditions length render an ad effective, either as a % of total spot or time? Now, I know that there was research from previously where you did track attention. And
we did. So this has been quite a big talking point amongst the radio groups, in particular in the UK. So Global over here in the UK actually have a new rule where an ad, they will not play any ads across any of their stations if they have T's and C's longer than 8 seconds. And a lot of that is based on the findings from Radio Centre, which actually showed that when you have excessive T's and C's, all of those complex messages are completely and utterly getting lost on consumers. Engagement levels are dropping when T's and C's are incredibly long, but also, and most importantly, recall of the key elements of the T's and C's, which are meant to be there to protect consumers, are just entirely being lost, because there's just too much information and people just switch off, or it's just too much for them to comprehend. Again, remember that radio is a passive medium. You have so much information, it's just completely and utterly lost. So is there a particular percentage? No, but with Global, with this rule of 8 seconds, that is the maximum that they will allow across any of their stations in the UK. And so, yeah, there is some guidance on our website around scripting, because I think certain words within finance ads trigger the need for lengthy T's and C's. So we pulled together some guidance around how you can focus on the core messages and not say those kind of triggering words, which will then lead to the need for excessive T's and C's. But say all of that is can be found on our Radio Centre UK website for anybody looking for some more guidance around that. But yeah, drops in engagement, but also most importantly, in drops in consumer recall about what exactly
Very interesting, very brave. Sorry, Don, it's very interesting, a very brave move, and I think the right move from Global, what they're saying that they will not take money for ads that have over T's over 8 seconds. It is interesting though. I do know, and I know you've done a lot of work in this in the UK. There's two parts where maybe some brand owners are emphasizing too much on T's and C's in terms of going beyond what the regulatory requirements are. There's opportunities there, and obviously there is the regulatory environment too. And just so everybody knows, in Ireland, the central bank have had a consumer credit review process that's going on for a long time, and it involves many aspects of consumer credit. And one tiny small aspect is communications. But Radio Centre Ireland have made a submission and actually used the Radio Centre UK research to show that actually T's and C's are having no positive impact because listeners are switching off, and there's probably better ways of informing them. But that's a long process involving many other aspects, but hopefully we get some guidance in time from the central bank in that area. Brilliant. Next question is, did research point to any difference between how people process radio, live broadcasts, and podcast listening? Now, I don't think podcast was specifically measured, but maybe one of you.
It's an interesting question. I think Donna can definitely talk to the need states of audio and how there's like nuances there between that. But my point of view on this would be the radio gauge data that Radio Centre have been building for over 10 years, looking at effectively brand lift studies for radio ads, is the most impressive audio-only effectiveness database ever. So I have partners I work with in the US that buy this data to do studies. So we've used that data to unlock audio learnings that can be applied creatively across the mix. I think that you can't really amplify the trust findings, because I think a lot of that's coming from how omnipresent and broad reach radio is as a platform. But the rest can definitely be applied to podcasting. The one last thing I would add would be thinking about where it sits within kind of like the consumer journey or the sales funnel would be if you can target more with digital audio, you can possibly get away with more of those left brain features, because you might be able to find those people that are in the buying mode. But yeah, I don't know if Donna, you've got anything to add on kind of the need states that.
No, I think exactly that. So this project focused on radio data, or the radio gauge data from within it. But yes, of course, all of the learnings around what makes a really effective audio ad can be applied across ads for podcasts. But no, I think it's an interesting point that you brought up, because you can do greater targeting with kind of podcasts to reach those in-market consumers. You might be able to get away with a few more left brain features, but of course you want to make your ads work as hard as possible and be as enjoyable and memorable as possible, and that's across podcasts and radio. So yeah, right brain features all the way.
Excellent. Loads of questions coming in, so I'll keep going. Next question. Thanks for the presentation. Great to see the association of creativity and positive outcomes. The lateralization of brain hemispheres is outdated science and has been long disproven. Has this affected the principles you're claiming here? So there it is.
Really interesting question, and we're getting into the nuts and bolts of method and research here, which I love. So there's a few ways to approach this. One would be I would say that what's been disproven with left and right kind of hemisphere work is this idea that our left brain does all our creativity and is where all our memory is stored, and our right brain is how we converse and stuff like this. That is outdated and disproven. And the work that we're actually looking at here is by Ian McGilchrist, which is a step on from that, from my point of view, which will be that the hemispheres don't do different things, but they do things differently. However, you can not agree with that, and you can just focus on the results. So I call them right brain features and left brain features because that's the methodology and research way that I got to them by understanding these kind of left and right hemispheres via Ian McGilchrist's work. But you could just call them narrow and broad beam features, because as we've proven with the memory and emotion data here, that these features do dramatically create different effects in advertising. So if you want to discount the left and right brain, sure, but you can't discount how powerful the findings are. Maybe you just want to call them narrow and broad beam. I'll continue to call them left and right brain because I love Ian McGilchrist's work.
Okay, brilliant, Andrew. Many thanks. Another really good question. The questions are really, really interesting, I think. Which emotion elicits the best response? Fear, humor, disgust, happiness, etc. Does this change per business or product category?
I love this question. I love this question. So advertising works on humans. Humans are involved in all advertising across all categories. And I've not seen any evidence out of any of the research you've done with any of my partners or studies, or any of the research that Orlando Wood's done, who's been doing this for over 10 years, especially working really closely with the IPA, that happiness is not how you grow effectiveness in advertising. And a lot of the time people go, what about charity advertising? because you always see them at Christmas. They leave you gut wrenching and reaching for the tissues to try and get you to donate. And sure, those kind of intense emotions, sadness and fear and anger, do drive short-term behavior change, and that's what kind of our spike rating measures. But we've done a lot of work looking at future donation intent and charity brands, and still even in the charity category, it's so important to leave people feeling positive so that it makes donations more. It increases propensity to donate in the future. If anyone would like to see that research as well, drop me an email. There's lots of research decks flying around now. Yeah, definitely drop me an email. But yeah, the short answer is, as we've seen in all kind of the findings today, happiness, which is mainly positive emotions, which is mainly built out of happiness and some surprise, are the key emotions to driving long-term effectiveness.
Brilliant, great. Many thanks, Andrew. Next question. Are the scores comparable across TV and radio? So can you directly compare the two, I suppose?
Yeah, it's not Q&A, it's grilling. This is a grilling, Kieran. Of course they are, which is absolutely amazing, which is why I love that Haribo example you pointed out. That's my favorite example. We've not changed our method with how we test radio and TV ads. So you can actually look into our database of hundreds of thousands of TV ads, find your TV ad, test your radio ad, and actually compare how effective they are. And that's how powerful it is, because that Haribo radio ad is so much more effective than a load of the TV ads out there. And it really shows the power of radio. And again, it's really underpinned by that key research finding from ThinkBox that Donna shared at the start. 70% of TV ads aren't even looked at, they're just heard. So of course, radio advertising can do just as good a job for brand building than TV.
Next question, I'll take this one. Is there a time limit on the test your ad audio offer? No, there's no time limit. So as I said, I will follow up with the recording and my email, and then you can just contact me directly and we can talk through next steps, but no time limit. Next question. Is there any audio bias at work when different accents are used in ads? The most trusted accent in audio, the Scottish or Welsh accent, according to Rob Brydon. So a question around accents, and is that?
No, that's another really good question. We love accents as human beings because it actually tells a story about a person without them having to tell you. You get their history, their context, their past, their emotion. So it makes kind of conversations richer and advertising richer. However, local nuances with accents. So when you're doing global work and thinking about how you apply that in local markets, you do need to kind of do a bit of research and make sure that there's no adverse reactions. We didn't see any obvious ones in the data set that we looked at in the UK, but it's probably worth checking with your market and possibly your target audience that using that kind of accent in your advertising.
Just as an extra point to that, remember one of the audio findings around create with a listener in mind. A regional accent really helps kind of lean into that and make an ad more relatable. I know it's a study from quite some time ago actually that looked at a road safety campaign and actually found that regional accents were made the ad work a lot harder, kind of bringing to life the motorcyclist within the midst of the kind of audio creative, with that regional accent played within the region, really kind of personified that motorbike rider and really helped bring together the message around look out for motorcyclists. So that was a really good example of how using the right accent on air in the right place really helped make that ad a lot more relatable. And again, fitting into the system one findings of create with a listener in mind.
Excellent. Many thanks again. Another question, and I'll answer this initially. Maybe Andrew, you'll follow up to make sure I'm correct. Do you test with specific Irish audience and not just national rep, and how quickly can you turn a test around? Yes, the sample is Irish, so that's 150 nationally represented audience in Ireland, so it's an Irish audience. And I think the test can be turned around within 24 hours, I think, Andrew, but the offer as well is to get a follow-up, meeting with a researcher. It might just take a bit of time to organize that within
Yeah,
Harry's?
it's a good question. We test with a national representative audience as standard, because then you can benchmark your results to all of the national representative audiences. So we never always just lead with a target sample, but you can also test with a specific Irish audience as well, you know, looking to buy a car in the past 6 months to see if there's any specific reaction from that audience. And yeah, testing normally takes a day. So I found it useful when I worked at Diageo that I could send my ad in and then I'd wake up the next day and it's normally on my desk already, so I could kind of go away and start doing my work.
Great, brilliant. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I'm curious whether the significance of right brain effects are lost or translated into 10% who are left-handed.
Really getting into the nuts and bolts of left and right here. So again, I'm just calling them left and right brained because that's how these creative features help us attend to advertising, help us pay attention to advertising. Again, you could call them narrow or broad beam features. So they work on human beings in general. Someone being left-handed or more left-brained. I actually argue that the whole calling someone left-brained is actually quite outdated. That first question that came in as well. So yeah, no. The creative features are about how to broadly entertain with stories, character, incident, accents, dialogue, versus the nuances of left and right-handed people. But yeah, no, really interesting question.
Right, next question. I think you're on the spot again, Andrew. It's a straight.
When does this end, Kieran?
it's a straight shoot. What sets you apart from your competitors?
Well, our testing, that is one of our competitors on the call. I'd argue that that our testing is based on the world's largest emotional database. So we test hundreds of thousands of TV ads, and our testing now stretches across the mix. So we've got huge norms to look at. It takes 24 hours and it's extremely predictive. So we work very closely with the IPA and the likes of Radio Center so that when you get a star rating, you know what it's going to do in marketing.
Okay. But just nearly there. 2 more questions. What about A/B testing? Would an advertiser have to pay for the 2 separate ads?
Yeah, a really good question. A/B testing is actually one of the most effective ways of actually using the platform, I think. So I actually was working with a brand that really just wanted to understand which music to choose, and they actually pretty much doubled their long-term effectiveness by choosing the right track. Yes is a short answer. You have to run testing twice, but I don't know. We can come to an under-the-counter deal, Mr. Anonymous attendee.
Yeah, and if you want to send again me a direct email on that, we can have a follow-up. And then the last question, I'm just bang on 1 o'clock, is brilliant. In the second-by-second data you showed, where does that come from? If it's calculated basing the data on self-reporting survey responses?
Yeah, it is. So people actually listen to the audio ad once, give us their unadulterated emotional and brand reaction. We then ask them to listen to it again, and they're self-reporting throughout when they notice what the brand was and how they're feeling. So it allows us to quickly get all that data in 24 hours from a large set of people. But it also allows us to, but we've also shown that our metrics actually lead to in-market effects, like what we've just shown today, whilst having like really interesting, rich diagnostic insights into which part of the ad works and why. So it's a really healthy balance between that scale and speed, but also predictiveness and actionable insights. Is that the last question, Kieran? Are we off the hook?
That is the last question, and the timing is wonderful because it is just 1 o'clock. So you can see, Donald and Andrew, many thanks. Huge amount of interest, huge amount of questions, which was fantastic to see. So many thanks to everybody for joining. I know it's 1 o'clock and people may want to go on their lunch break. So really appreciate taking the time out of your very busy schedules. Thank you very much. Radio Centre Ireland will be in touch soon with our next events. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.